join us today. So my name is Kathleen Diamond, and I have the great pleasure and honor of being the chair of ALC Bridge. And I'd like to just give you a couple of sort of ideas about how this came to be. And I'm going to keep my remarks extremely brief because we've put together this afternoon for you what I consider an absolute stellar panel. The highlight of which, of course, is one of your very own alums. So I'm going to be brief. The creation story, if you will, of ALC Bridge goes back a few years to a meeting of the Association of Language Companies in Sonoma, California, retreat rooms. You know, everybody is sitting around a small group talking about their so-called pain points. And it very rapidly came to dry pipelines and lack of talent for these companies to hire in their language companies. And it was the same problem across the board, from the large companies to the small companies. Everybody was concerned about their increasing inability to find linguists and people that were trained or people that knew about the language service industry to work in their companies. Who knows how these things happen, but somehow eyes turn on me. So Kathleen, what are you going to do about it? So this is what we've done about it. We created an incredible committee. I call them the awesome people. It's a combination of the employers, that's the Association of Language Company owners, and then the educators. Those are people like the folks that are hosting us this afternoon from the University of New Mexico. And then the idea is to bridge those two entities to educate and show all concerned what the language services industry is and the incredible opportunities we have to offer to students. And it's all for the benefit of you guys, the students. So we're always super happy when we've got an audience to talk to, and we hope that we'll be able to give you some good inspiration about what we have to offer. I'm going to show you a couple of slides, and then I'm going to introduce your very own alma mater. Hold on a minute. Okay, so what is Bridge? Very quickly, it's a platform and introduces students to the language services industry and the range of careers. And it's this range of careers that I hope is going to really interest you this afternoon. And perhaps you know about us, but oftentimes we find that folks really don't know much about us. So what is it? It's a tool. And for the employers, it's a tool to recruit the workforce, people like yourselves. The employers not only have jobs, they also have internships. So they want to know about you for the purposes of building their talent and their workforces. It's a tool for educators because the educators are being introduced to a service that's much unheard of. And it allows educators also to tweak where necessary the curricula to prepare students accordingly for the job you have. And for you guys, for the career seekers, it's to be enthusiastic in developing your language skills. Oftentimes students let their language skills drop. In our industry, we're not necessarily looking for language majors. We're looking for people who have a passion for language and parlay it with other things like chemistry and engineering and business and law and medicine and everything else in between. So that is something to keep in mind. Second, Bridge is a bridge, and that means coming together. It's a platform of togetherness. We can't do it without you, and you can't do it without us. So we want to participate in your world, and we want you to participate in ours. So how can we help you? Once again, I'll provide these slides to your professors so that you'll have access to them, but you can kind of get the idea. We're here really for the benefit of the students to bring you excitement about the incredible dynamic setting that we work in, And the purpose of the panel is to show you, not just have you look at a slide, but I'm going to introduce 3 people to you this afternoon who are the real thing. Stars of our language services industry. Each will show you a different aspect of it. And I'm going to start this afternoon with, how could I not show you this slide? Our speakers won't be able to mention each and every one of these kinds of career opportunities that exist. This is just a start. But we wanted to show you that, I mean, things like trans creator, these jobs didn't exist when I was getting started in this industry. They do today, and employers are looking for you. Salespeople, managers, CEOs, you'll find out. Localizers, raters, dubbing, all these things are part of our industry and important for you to know about. And so this is how you can get started, but I'm going to move past this and back to the real show of the afternoon. And that is our entrepreneurs. Susan Amarino is a UNM grad. And she is also the president of the Association of Language Companies. She's also a good buddy, and she's extremely passionate. You'll see the minute she opens her mouth, she looks so quiet. Well, look out. Now she's going to start speaking. Hold on. Thank you so much. Susan, go for it.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Kathleen's right. I'm very passionate. I'm passionate about UNM. I'm passionate about New Mexico. I'm passionate about the world, and I'm passionate about language. Thank you so much for the opportunity to get to spend some time with you, my fellow colleagues and students that I'm just so happy to be with you. As a UNM grad, I, on so many different occasions, have an opportunity to not only represent the university, but also to represent language. Now, what does all this mean? So how did I even get into this? This is, to me, kind of the funny part. I am actually originally from Colorado, which is where I am actually right now. And I showed up in New Mexico with a tennis racket, and somebody was picking me up from the airport looking for somebody with a tennis racket. So I knew nobody in New Mexico and fell in love. And I think we have the very best university. We've got an outstanding business department, law school, medical, hospital, everything. We are education. We have it going on. Language and culture really matters, not only to the state of New Mexico, but also to our university. And I can't tell you how important that is in doing exactly what Kathleen mentioned, which is bridging this gap. After I graduated from UNM, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I actually stumbled into finding a group called Up With People. And the Up With People is an international educational group. We would travel around the world and put on a musical performance for 2 hours. And for every hour of musical show, we would do community service projects in that community. And the purpose of the organization is to create an understanding among the different cultures of the world, and letting people know that, yes, you, one person, if you just start to do one thing for your community, you can make a difference in that community. And then hopefully it goes out bigger to the state and to the world. So when after traveling for 5 years, after having been to Australia, Japan, every ice arena you can imagine in Canada, every small town and big town in Colorado and the United States, and also all over in Europe, once it was time to leave the road, I thought I was going to suffocate without having language and culture around. I came home and I opened the phone book. Back in the day when we had a phone book, started fumbling through the yellow pages. There's got to be something with language. How can I find something? And sure enough, I fell into the industry, as so many people do. That's where I found my love of project management. And that is where I learned so much more about language and culture. And yet my foundation and my hunger for having this at the fingertips of my life every day was so important. So I started I started in as a project coordinator, actually. What is that? This was a person where I actually reported to a project manager, and I had an opportunity to work with projects such as if you have like an HP printer and you would have these, I don't know, 50 or 30 languages that we would need to translate into, and we had to print them out and proof them and check them. I'm like, how am I going to check this in Chinese and Arabic and Vietnamese? And now I know how to do those kinds of things. But it took a lot of training. I now own my own company, Liaison Multilingual Services. I am based in Denver. I'm also the president of the Association of Language Companies. I've had the privilege of working very closely with my peers that are here today and many more on standards for the language industry, because I can tell you the number one thing that matters is getting it right. Language absolutely matters. It can cost a life, it can cost a limb, it can cost somebody getting residency, it can cost a refugee trying to escape from a Ukrainian war. It's so many different things it can be, and you're going to hear so many awesome stories that we have to share with you today. But I really want to make sure that you all know there are so many opportunities for us, UNM grads, that we can do in the language industry. Kathleen just provided a slide with so many different examples, anything from a project coordinator from where I started. It could be a vendor, finding different vendors who need to match a particular project. Maybe it's a matter of finding a Chuckese interpreter for a medical appointment or a legal deposition. And these matter. We fight so hard. We have just come from what we call ALC on the Hill, where we have an opportunity to go meet with our government officials and explain to them why language access in the medical facilities, medical healthcare matters so much, because people come here. I can't even imagine being stranded in a foreign country where I don't speak the language and I have no advocate to be able to help me, and yet it could be life and death for me. So I visualize those on so many different levels, and I'm sure as people who are interested in language, you can appreciate that as well. Look, we have some amazing stories today to tell today. So Kathleen, is it all right if I go ahead and turn the floor over to Esther and let her start talking a little bit too?
Yes, you may, but let me just segue in just a tiny bit for the students. You could tell from Susan's stories that she's primarily in the translation business, working with documents. And I'm sure she has other services, because many of our companies have multiple services. But we wanted to bring you speakers this afternoon that kind of give you an idea of the range of the companies that exist and the services that we provide. So as I introduce Esther to you, you'll hear more about the interpreting services, plus probably mentioning some of the training as well. Esther is the Interpretations Program Manager of Piedmont Global Language Solutions. And the owner of her company is one of our good colleagues, Mohammed. And he's in the Washington, D.C. area. And he's been also a friend of mine for a while. And their company does quite a bit of contracting with the government, the United States government. So you'll get some ideas. I'm sure she'll mention to you a little bit about what that's like. So with that very brief introduction, Esther, please take the mic. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I can't compete with all the great stories you're going to hear today from Susan, and especially Naomi, who has tons of great pictures to share with you. But when Kathleen asked me to join you today, she said to me, put a presentation together and show them your journey. So I did put a presentation together, which I want to share with you today. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see it? Thumbs up? Yeah? Okay. So yes, I do work for PGLS. And let me see if I can find how I'm going to move here. I can't find my little arrows. There you go. So yes, Kathleen said, talk to them about your story, your trajectory in the language industry. I was like, okay, I'll do that, and I'm going to take you in the next 15 minutes through my story. But before we start, my goal today is really to get you excited about working in the language industry and to also give you an idea about the human side of the language industry. So I will piggyback a little bit on what Susan was saying, the importance of the work we do every day for other people. And while we do this together, I want you to keep on the back of your head this question. What is your superpower? Because I'm sure you have one. When I was a student like you, I studied translation and interpreting skills in Barcelona. It was a 4-year degree that took me around Europe. I had to pay for all those wonderful year abroad programs. So yes, I moved to Belfast, London, Paris, Brittany, and I had to pay for it. So I started working. I worked as a tourist guide. I was an escort interpreter for commercial and political missions. I was a translator for nonprofits. I did court interpreting, conference interpreting. I thought I made it when I landed this job to interpret for the Barcelona soccer team live on TV. I was so proud of myself. Did I know how to do all these things well? Not really. And I learned that pretty quickly, But my message to you today is you have more to offer to our industry than you currently think. You are better positioned than many other candidates in the market just because the type of learning you are getting right now in a language program, literature programs, and all the vast array of things that your university offers, right? So my message is find what you're good at and start. You need to gain experience, but how do you gain it? You gain it by doing. So figure out where you start. When I started, most of the interpretation was done here on site. Right now, our companies have opened a virtual world for you. Video remote interpreting, over the phone interpreting, remote simultaneous interpreting. And guess what? You can do all that from the comfort of your home or your dorm, right? When I finished my degree, I was very interested in cognitive linguistics, pragmatics, discourse analysis, areas that you're probably studying or you came into contact with already. So I went into teaching. I became a university fellow for British University, Durham, and I taught language courses from very basic grammar to translation, interpreting, social-political language courses. And I studied a master's degree in international relations, and I studied a PhD in politics. So you're probably wondering, why is this lady in the United States right now? Well, I also taught part of an MBA program where one of those students had an error in his language class. He was studying Mandarin, but ended up in my Spanish class. That student swept me off my feet, and little did I know, many British paths later and some Bruce Springsteen songs, I was married and in the US. So when I came here, I realized that some of the translation and interpreting programs were heavy theoretical. And what I was seeing on the ground, especially in community interpreting, were interpreters that were not as prepared as I would have liked. So I started teaching Spanish for healthcare professions, and I quickly became involved with interpreting organizations, and I started training interpreters. In that work, I became aware of language access and language access in healthcare. And what is that? That's really a legal framework that contains a vast array of laws like the ones that I've listed here that basically regulate the way interpreters are used or you are supposed to work with them in healthcare settings. I work for Baysday Health, a healthcare hospital with 12,000 employees, over 50 interpreters, 28 freelance translators, many coordinators, schedulers. And I realized that language access was more than just interpreting. We create language access plans, but sometimes these good skills that you're gaining as a humanities student became very handy for me. And I became attached to people that were doing critical medical humanities. What is that? That's an approach that incorporates disciplines from the humanities like art and philosophy. And they say, okay, this is good not just to improve medical education, but it's also a tool to be able to critique the way we provide healthcare. And oh my, I became hooked. I became part of the medical school as a community faculty member, and I did a bunch of workshops around social determinants of health. I did poverty simulations that took our CEOs and healthcare professionals through the life and sometimes the barriers that our limited English proficient patients go through every day. I advocated for the use of interpreters as part of the medical team, not just as an add-on. And I did a lot of teaching in role plays and scenario-based learning with doctors to teach them how to actually maximize the use of an interpreter in healthcare. All this culminated with the first medical interpreting apprenticeship approved by the state of Massachusetts that built on an already like really phenomenal program that existed for interpreters in my hospital. So yes, in the language industry, you are going to need for a lot of works, a combination of tech and language skills. These are some of them, but we also need sales, marketing, leaders in the industry. And when I first started in this, I looked for the right company. I would say to you, look for a mission that you feel passionate about. And PGLS mission is to promote equity, commerce, and security. They had me at hello with the first one, equity, right? So right now I lead a global team and I have my hands in a lot of little processes. I look at process improvement. I try to get the best solution for our clients. I do a little bit of quality and engagement, and I have great teams under me that help me develop some of these programs. And overall, I'm very focused on designing processes that are inclusive and that allow us to keep our startup culture. Now, all that is complex, I get it, but that's what we do in the language industry. There's never a boring day because we manage complexity, and complexity does not get automated, my friends. That's the beauty of this. So you have transferable skills. I call them the good old transferable skills of the humanities. You're learning it right then with Heather and with Emma. You're learning language skills, cultural sensitivity, problem solving. We need all that. We need that in the language industry. We need employees that are able to create relationships, that influence funding and budget approval, that can manage our staff, and they can bring innovation to the table. And guess what? This could be an ode to the humanities, but it's not just me saying this. The key trend in the industry right now is mergers and acquisitions. PGLS is right now the fastest growing LSP. And that's because a combination of growth and acquiring other companies. So we need people like you able to bridge cultures under one big umbrella, able to navigate complicated situations. And not just me, Deloitte has this wonderful study called The Value of the Humanities, where they say that students like you are better equipped than any others in the market to drive business success. You, because you have greater levels of teamwork, more interpersonal capabilities. So guess what? I want some of you in my team. So I asked you at the beginning, what's your superpower? It could be in technology skills, it could be in humanities skills, but there is a rewarding career in the language industry. Look at this. Some of our companies started because of this legal framework I talked about before, language access, that we keep advocating for. But we are at a special time in history right now where that language access framework It's now changing, and people are starting to talk about language justice. What is language justice? Justice is really human rights. It's this idea that you know, because you're working already in these things, that language can also be a system of oppression. And it's something very powerful. And when you get into the language industry with this special push right now for more diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace, you have a chance to affect the lives of so many people, especially some of the most vulnerable demographics that we serve. So I'm already excited. Where do you want to start? So I say, start with us, email me, call me, ask me about courses and certifications. PGLS has ample opportunity for you to get started. We do have opportunities for interpreters that want to do VRI, OPI. We do have a webinar series to get those new to the industry to learn more about the profession from the beginning. If you're lucky to become one of our employees, we have pathways that will guide you, and you could become the future leaders of this company. So talk to me, call me, truly. And if you think that everything I explained today was planned, wrong. There was no roadmap. No roadmap at all. And when I started, I didn't have half the information you have available to you today. So I want to leave it with this. Think about what's your superpower. Identify your skills. Take advantage of the opportunities that come your way, like the one that you have today. Self-reflect and self-critique, which is at the center of what an interpreter does every day. Address your gaps, but don't worry too much about them. Because I will say, if you invest in your strengths, you'll find your true passion. And when you follow your passion, you put also research, plan, and execution. Oh my gosh, the world is your oyster. So the most important thing for me is to stay aligned with your values. Find a company you truly want to work for. And you are going to find that if those values are aligned, the hard days will be way easier to endure. And believe me, we do have plenty of hard days if we sound so excited, okay? So I can't wait for questions. I'm very excited to meet you, and I hope that some of you reach out to me later. So thank you.
Thank you, Esther. You're the best. And we'll take questions after we've heard from all the panelists. But I certainly want to come work for you. Could you take me too?
I think about it, Kathleen.
Give it some thought. I've got the passion, I promise, and the persistence, I think. So let me thank you again, Esther and Susan. And now, class, well, you're going to just spend a few minutes with Naomi Bowman. She's coming to us this afternoon from Brussels, and she is one of my favorite colleagues. I mean, I have so many favorites, but Naomi truly is a real favorite. And I've been so pleased that she's been willing, because, these people that are speaking to you this afternoon are coming as volunteers. They're coming because they want to share what they know and bring you into our world of the language services. So I have to say thank you to all of you. And Naomi, I'm not going to take one more minute of your time, because I'd like the students to hear directly from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Welcome, everybody. And those who'd like to come on camera, please do so, because I love speaking to an audience. I love speaking to an audience of students, especially, and I like to see who I'm speaking with, if possible. So say hello, and I hope to see you in a couple of minutes. Now, about me. I have been in the language industry for 34-ish years. We'll focus on the ish there. My company has been in existence for 50 years. It's celebrating its 50th anniversary. Of course, I have not been with it for 50 years, but we have quite a legacy. And how did I get into the language industry? Well, first of all, I'm going to say that our company focuses on conference interpreting. We also provide translation services and other language services, but most of what we do is focused on the event industry. So events where there are multiple languages spoken. That is our concentration. Now, let's get into the fun part. I had to adjust my pilot seat here if you heard the noise. Here we go. I'm going to start first by telling you how I got into this. My father started our company. He was a mad scientist and inventor and created some equipment that happened to work very well for simultaneous interpreting, which is United Nations style. And I joined him because I was forced to, as the daughter who got along best with him, not because I planned this for my career. I studied astrophysics a little bit in college. I wanted to do aerospace engineering. I have a son who's now studying that at University of Colorado, where I went to school. So he's following in my wannabe footsteps. But how did I end up with a degree in international affairs and a master's in international relations? Because I love the world, I love to travel. And it was the one degree I could do that allowed me to also do everything else. And University of Colorado didn't have an undergrad in astro at the time. So I said, oh, I'll do this. And off I went to London and Vienna, and I've lived in 5 different countries total now. So I ended up working with my father. After turning down the opportunity, I got into Cambridge to do a doctorate degree in international relations and diplomacy. But I realized that I wanted to be out there working in the world, making a difference, not researching it and analyzing it at that time in my life. The pull of what my father was doing in his career was so strong. So off I went. And now I'm going to show you some pictures of why I've never been bored a day in my life. I want to focus on a couple things Esther said, and also Susan: complexity and boredom. As I show you some pictures, I have never been bored. And if you thrive on complexity and variety, the language industry will not disappoint. Okay, let's look at some slides and see what it's really like out there. We do conference interpreting. So this is a picture of a group of us. I just realized that we're all women in this photo. There were men on this team, but they were around the corner probably chatting with the guards. This is at the Tower of London. We had an event at the Tower of London, a special dinner. Yes, I got to see the crown jewels with nobody around them in the dark, just me. It was pretty fun. This is a group, we were about 100 in total. This is a partial group of our interpreters who were available for a photo. This is one of the larger events that was held in North America. We had 34 different concurrent language channels at one time. And this photo represents conference interpreters from all over the globe. People flew in from all over for this event. This is the same event. This is a series of conference interpreting booths set up as a hub. So the conference interpreters sit inside these booths. We had video cameras, and we broadcast this out to various locations at the resort. This happened to be in Las Vegas, and that was a big one. Took a lot to make that happen. This is a picture of me in the Gaelic booth at the European Parliament. Which is pretty fun, but I want to make sure everybody understands I'm not an interpreter, but I couldn't resist pretending that I was on this day. I happen to have a water bottle with me of our technology partner, Belgian company called Televic. And of course, Televic equipment is behind the water bottle. So this picture shows, you can see in the photo, the different sound booths. There are 23 languages that are used every day at the European Parliament, and many, many, many interpreters, both in-house and contract. This was a fun event, and I do want to focus on fun because, wow, have I had fun in my career. This is in Corfu. Behind the person taking this photo is a beach, and we were working at the beach. These are dressing rooms for the beach, which we had to turn into simultaneous interpretation booths for the evening. It did rain, which made things very exciting, but we were a big group, and this was part of a cruise from Venice down the Dalmatian coast, stopping in Corfu and on to Athens. And what an exciting week that was. And we've done many cruises. This is Patagonia. This is another group. This is a small group of us. We had the day off, those of us in this photo, and we decided to climb a mountain because what do you do on your day off in Patagonia? You climb a mountain. On this day, we had interpreters in our group who were golfing on the golf course, working as they were golfing, assisting, interpreting for golf, for a golf game. We had interpreters who were river rafting. We had and that was work, by the way. That wasn't pleasure. I mean, it was pleasure, but but they were working as they were river rafting. We had interpreters kayaking on the lake, kind of behind the photo on the left. We had interpreters kayaking for work. And then not in Patagonia, on that same day, I realized when I was on top of the mountain that my company also had an interpreter racing, well, not racing, but a passenger in a race car. It was a BMW, actually, a new model at Laguna Seca Racecourse in California. And they were interpreting inside the race car and doing the press conferences. And we also had an interpreter who was riding horseback up a volcano in Hawaii. And that was also for work. And I thought, wow, what a life I lead. And I'm so thrilled to be able to provide income and adventures like this for so many wonderful people around the world. Life is good. So that's just a few photos to give you an idea. So conference interpreting, I just want to talk about that a little bit. I don't know my audience here. I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of conference interpreting or is interested in becoming a conference interpreter, but all of those people in the photos were conference interpreters. And whatever kind of interpreting, if you choose to go into interpreting or do other things in the language industry, I want to focus on what you need to do to achieve that. If you want to become a conference interpreter, you have to get the proper credentials. And that means generally doing a master's degree in conference interpreting or translation and interpreting. Being bilingual, of course, is, or multilingual is essential, and hone your language skills and add additional languages. If you are a European Parliament or European Commission interpreter, it's actually required for you to study additional languages, and they provide the classes for you to do this through the European Parliament, and they want you to have 5 languages. So they help you become a very multilingual person. But after getting the credentials and the degree, the number one thing that you need to do is build relationships. The language industry is what we call a knowledge industry, and it's founded on relationships. And it's all about building those relationships. Conference interpreting is not the easiest career to break into. The only way you can do it is by building relationships and networking and getting to know people. You have to have a business-focused mindset if you are a freelancer in the language industry. You need to treat yourself like a company. You need to be an entity, even if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have an LLC or some other formal kind of an entity. You still need to treat yourself as if you are a business entity. You should have a website. You should have the right tools and equipment for a conference interpreter. That means being able to be flexible and do on-site interpreting plus remote. And that means having a lot of tools at your disposal. So I'm wearing right now, I'm wearing headphones. I decided to wear these to model what an interpreter would be wearing. These meet ISO standards, and they sound beautiful, and they protect my ears by providing really good sound quality. I'm also using a pretty fancy microphone that's just out of view. It kind of looks like this one. Mine is a Shure SM57, which is a broadcast microphone, and the one I just showed you is a Shure SM7B, but I'm starting to geek out on technical stuff, which is part of my world. My desk is surrounded by audio equipment and devices and cables and XLR and little audio mixers and all kinds of gadgets. So you have to have the right equipment to be able to do simultaneous interpreting remotely. You need to become an expert in a variety of areas of knowledge so that you can do a conference on olive oil production one day and Jaguar and Range Rover cars the next. Today, I spent my morning trying to find simultaneous interpreters in Belgium and the Netherlands who speak both Dutch and French and can go back and forth for a Range Rover and Jaguar conference that's coming up on short notice. So you need to build that network. And as students, there are lots of ways to find out and meet other people in the field. And I wanted to talk about a few of those. There is an organization called Tech Forward. Of course, ALC Bridge is your foundational organization. Tech Forward runs summits on interpreting and translation innovation every year, and they provide scholarships for students. And in fact, I'm just donating to their scholarship fund today, and I've done a lot of speaking at those events. But that organization is just a treasure trove of skills, resources, people to meet, glossaries, tips and tricks, and all kinds of basics about how to get into the language industry and build your skill set. There's another organization that produces the TERP Summit, which is out of the UK. And that's another one that's great for students who want to do some career exploration. That's usually held in February every year. So we just had one, sometimes late January, I think. But it's a great resource. Social media and being on LinkedIn is the best way to network and build those relationships. Please follow me, follow my company. I post a lot of interesting things and educational things about interpreting and especially remote interpreting. I'm involved with setting international standards for interpreting both through ASTM and also ISO out of Switzerland. I'm the project editor of a new standard on simultaneous interpreting delivery platforms that's going to be finalized this year. So to sum up, you need to always be a professional in everything that you do and build relationships and go get them. This is a fun, exciting world. And I hope I've provided a little insight into some of the more obscure things that we do every day in the language industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you so very much. And now, Heather and Emma, we would like to be able to take questions and interact with the students. If you guys are ready and willing, let's get on the bridge.
Sure. I might start by asking a quick question here. Naomi, you mentioned an organization and I missed the name of it. That's really good for networking. Sorry, what was that again?
It's Tech Forward. It's out of Switzerland. So if you Google Tech Forward, Kathleen can provide you with the link too, so that you can provide that to everybody. Yeah, Tech Forward out of Switzerland. And they have a Tech Insiders Club.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And I guess I have another question too. If you could give just a piece of advice to any student who's just desperately looking for a job right now, as so many of us are, and they're multilingual, what would you tell them?
Being multilingual will give you a leg up with any of the companies in the language industry. I just hired a couple of positions, one in business development. That person has a background in medical interpreting, actually, but a stronger business development background. And she's 100% bilingual Spanish English. And that was one of the main reasons I hired her. I just hired a Spanish speaking technician too, a very high level audio technician. So advice. I think that Esther had a really good screen up about your skills, and she talked about the humanities, and I loved that, because if you want to get into the language industry, we are generally looking for people who are thinkers and also doers, and that more humanities focused background, I agree with her. Susan is living proof of this. If you have a broader humanities background and you're a thinker and you're bilingual, you have skills that some other candidates aren't going to have. Focus on those. You don't, I can tell you this, it's not always about the skills that you bring to the table, the hard skills. It's about the soft skills too. And we need people who are productive, who are thinkers, who are creative. This is a challenging industry. In my company, we're faced with thinking puzzling challenges every day. And sometimes they're really hard. But that's what kind of drives us, because it's so gratifying, so interesting. There's nothing boring. Am I right, Susan and Esther? This industry is for people who don't sit still easily, people who have a lot of energy, people who have a lot of interests.
And that's, I don't want to interrupt, but literally,
yeah.
I gave my presentation not sitting, because I can't sit still.
Yeah,
we wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, we in the language industry, we don't do still very well. I would say that is true. We have a lot of energy. We have a lot of interests. Yeah, jobs are hard to come by. I'm always accepting resumes. I am hiring right now, but probably what I'm hiring for at this moment isn't a good match for anybody in this room, because they're technical positions. But I always want resumes because things change, and we need project managers, we have business development, we have executives, we have financial people, we have technical people, we have marketing people who can. It's very hard to put the knowledge industry into effective marketing visuals. How do you illustrate translation? These things are not easy. So people with language skills can apply those skills to all kinds of different roles. I'm sure Susan would agree with that.
I was going to say, Susan, you might want to add a word or two.
Yeah.
Because you were kind to turn over the mics early in the session, but come back to us.
I would also like to, on the translation side, actually, we do spend a lot of time in our seats. So that energy can be, yeah, we have a lot, but we've got to have that hunger to learn, because going through dictionaries, learning terms, working on consistency, making sure that we have glossaries and style guides. What are all these things? What are these words that I'm throwing out to you? There are so many times when clients have certain terms that they would like to use. I can tell you that, we do work for anything from Disney to Coca-Cola to Hewlett-Packard to education. So it's a variety, but each one of them have their own lingo, right? I mean, even sometimes when we're talking today, I'm talking in code even now with glossaries and style guides, but there are certain ways that we write. Or do we want a formal tense? Do we want this to be informal? Does it need to be consistent with the website? If I'm talking about fertilization products for farmers, what does that look like? How technical do I need to be? And it's a different kind of a technical than what Naomi's referring to, right? She's talking a little bit more electronic. Me, I'm talking a little bit more like chemistry and other kinds of components. So there's so much to learn, and every day I learn something very new. And it just, I think that's a big part of this industry. The information that is in our minds it's endless. And so I think that's important to remember, but that quality and detail, the smallest of details, because just a miss of a swipe of a character or missing an accent mark and having something cut off on a word on a brochure or some sort of a documentation can be critical. So it can have a very different meaning in a word. And I see Heather nodding her head. I can only imagine with the Arabic and, I mean, just the littlest of things can be a very, very different meaning of a word. So
perfectionists wanted. Yes. Details are so important.
It is. And a hunger for learning, because
a hunger for learning.
Everything's always changing, right? I mean, I just look in the last 6 months at how much our world has changed and terminologies change. And so there's just so much to learn, and you are welcome. We would love to have you. All of us are looking for people to have on our team. So don't be shy. Please make sure to reach out. If we don't know an answer, we may actually have a colleague or somebody who might be able to help or help you even with your career paths and different things. So please, as a fellow alum, I really want to make sure that you all succeed and that you do really great things in our world. And I can't wait to have an opportunity to spend time with you and to get to know you more.
It's all about networking.
All about networking.
I have this.
We're great resources here.
So may I ask you, Zen, do you have a question? Because I thought you were coming in with perhaps a little bit of a question. I don't want to put you on a spot. If you don't, just, no question. Yeah, you, Zen. I may be mispronouncing your name.
Oh, no. I'm just curious how those things works, because now I'm teaching Chinese. So I want to have more information, as you guys say, it's all about networking. So because if you ask around in the education department, so if I ask around about translate and interpreting, it's like no one knows. So I'm glad have a chance to have all the information. And I'm probably really gonna reach out with email, see what kind of certification will we get out, what you guys get in today.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for asking the question, because it's part of the little sort of sensitivity that in building this bridge between the employers and the academics. My background is I have a master's degree from the University of Florida in 16th century literature. So of course it was expected that I would use it academically as a teacher or doctor, professor, whatever. And so when I came in to talk about entrepreneurship and commerce, a lot of look, listen, she's not good. So don't be shy. It's common. These are the silos that we're breaking down. We're trying to be inclusive. We're not saying that those jobs don't exist, but other jobs do too. So I'm so glad you asked the question.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we're
I wanted
both
to add
doing
to
the
it
same
too.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're doing the same thing. I want to know what the students in the audience or the people in the audience are studying.
Let me start. I'm doing a PhD now in the UNM language, literacy, and the social culture study. And I'm from Tibet, so I speak Tibetan, but I got most of my education in the China mainland. So I speak a fluent Chinese. And yes, and then now I'm in the foreign language teaching Chinese for the bachelor students. Yep.
Oh,
Fascinating.
You're an ideal talent for the global talent for the language services industry.
Thank you.
I would like to add that you also speak 2 languages that are in high demand. One of them, a lot of my colleagues will consider it a language of lesser diffusion, which means there are not many interpreters trained in the market to provide interpretation for some of the LEP patients we serve, right? So you do have a phenomenal combination of languages to start, right? I speak Spanish, French, Catalan. There's many of me like me out there. But what you bring to the table, it's already great. Sometimes we look for people that have teaching skills because we have opportunities in government to train others, sometimes government agencies and government agents. So it's pretty cool. You can work with the CIA and the DA, and you can train people into becoming more aware of the language and the culture. Sometimes you prepare them to go on certain missions. So you can choose, you can do great things. And this is a great industry. I mean, look at all these great ladies, and we're all smiling and all excited about the same things. So go for it.
And there's plenty of gentlemen too, Emmanuel, don't you worry. It just happens we're girls. We there for the longest time, I was doing these platforms, these webinars, and Randy Morgan, one of our members, said, Kathleen, don't you know any women? So now suddenly I have the women on. So it's a very diverse industry. Don't you worry.
It's fine. I don't feel threatened. It's okay. I have a question. Okay. So my interest. Well, my major is archaeology. My second major is languages, concentrations in Spanish and French, and my minor is biology. My interest in languages actually preceded my interest in archaeology. So career-wise, archaeology is where I'm headed. But I see the language piece of the puzzle as a really vital piece to working in. I want to work in Mesoamerica, and that means not just speaking Spanish, but also indigenous languages. So I'm curious about what developing skills as an interpreter and translator can, well, it's pretty obvious how that can be advantageous, but if the gold standard for translation and interpreting is a master's degree, how much credibility would it lend me to have something like a certificate? What would that entail?
Well, there's lots of answers to that question. It's actually a fairly tricky place to be in the language industry because certification, credentialing, degrees are all words that are used interchangeably and oftentimes incorrectly. So yes, a master's would be a gold standard, but I don't think it's an absolute requirement. I think many companies are very happy to have you work in translation or in interpretation if you have the skill to do so. And that's a trickier thing. How do you acquire that? And then we get into this word of certification and all this other stuff. And then we have standards. It's still a bit of the Wild West because we're a fairly new industry. And we are putting things in place. When I say we, I mean the Association of Language Companies. And, we represent the industry in professionalizing everybody's work. The longest time that we weren't even considered professionals. Hey, you speak Spanish? Come, give me a hand. You can translate for me. Well, no. So it's a work in progress right now. You want to do the best credentials you can. I will send some resources to Heather to distribute for you, where you can go for certification for and there's very limited certification available in this country for interpreters. Translation is a bit more broadly, but you can get credentialed, you can get experience, you can get trained, you can get, a certificate, maybe not certification, but a certificate. There's all sorts of stuff that's available and in progress and being put together right now for you. But don't think that you have to get a master's is what I'm trying to say to you. Prepare yourself.
The American Translators Association, the ATA, would be a great resource to start with. And they offer a number of courses. There are actually free courses on LinkedIn through a lot of the colleagues that I work with offer free and very low cost classes in some of the basics. So there are a lot of training opportunities out there to get you started. And if you were referring to certificate programs in lieu of a master's degree, like a one-year certificate program, I know like the Middlebury Institute at Monterey, formerly Monterey Institute, MIIS, has a certificate program in court interpreting that's a one-year program. Those types of programs are very highly respected as well. So any kind of credentialing that you can get under your belt will be highly advantageous.
That's great. Thank you.
Heather, we're at the hour. We're at the top of the hour, but it's
I think Laura had a question earlier that I saw.
Laura, please. We're here.
I was just you were asking us to introduce ourselves and say what we do, so that's where I was going.
Please.
But I'm a French master's student, and I think right now I've got my hand in one too many pots.
Never.
I'm a bit of a polyglot. I obviously
She sounds perfect for us, right, gang?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I have lots of, can you work in this project? Can I? I don't know. I am kind of contracting myself out for some translation of like old Quebec legal French. I haven't done it since undergrad, but I paid for my undergraduate degree with ASL interpretation. And I'm teaching French. All my other languages are just kind of for fun. I haven't really tested them in any sort of professional capacity, but I've got some Navajo under my belt. I've got some Punjabi, Swahili, and Portuguese. So
You sound like an ideal candidate.
You do.
Yeah, I will say this, some of the jobs when I started as a student, I was not fully prepared for. And you learn as you go. And as you hear here, it's that learning, that drive to do better. And if you have that, you can accomplish many things. The good thing is right now, yes, there are certifications out there for Emmanuel, if you're looking into community interpreting or medical interpreting, there are shorter term certificates you can take and certifications that you can achieve in a short period of time if you are fully bilingual, right? In the languages that you're looking to interpret for. Another association is called CCHI, is the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters. And if you go to their webpage, you will find that they have very clear specifications about what to study, how to study, and a very clear explanation on their testing process, right? I would say don't get discouraged. Yeah, they have a cost. It's not brutal, okay? And if you prep a little bit, those are certifications you can probably pass with a little bit of a studying on the side. Now, what Naomi does is la crème de la crème of interpretation, right? So to get to what Naomi is providing in the market, you need years of experience and very solid training. I tell you, because I tried it, right?
Yeah. In all fairness, most of the people in these photos, we joke that the youngsters in our industry, the newbies, as we call them, they're the ones who are under 50. So it takes a long time. You basically have to have that master's degree. There are a few people who don't. They're very highly educated and they broke into it another way, but they're able to gain that experience somehow. But yeah, the conference interpreting world that I showed you, most of those people have a master's degree from an institution either in the US or abroad in interpreting and translation. But we have fun. It's worth it.
But you could get started. Community interpreting, healthcare interpreting, legal
Yes.
interpreting. You can get there and build up if that's your path. And if you have a ESL, Laura, just shoot me an email. We'll talk about pathways that you can put in place to gain those certifications. We have a high demand and not enough trained interpreters. So I'm excited to meet you.
I think we can all say that. We have a high demand and not enough
Yes.
linguists.
That's why we
period.
built Bridge.
Yes, I mean, we have 4 events in Belgium on the 21st of April that are not going to happen because we couldn't find interpreters for the 21st of April.
So
Just
one
not
of our
going to happen.
one of our larger companies that's represented in the ALC Bridge committee, if you go on our website and check out the committee, is Frank Perry. He's the he's the VP of Human Resources at Language Line, which is a large interpreting company. And his favorite thing is to get on here and say, I could use 3,000 interpreters in Spanish right now. Where are you?
Mhm.
Yeah, I will say, Laura, you have a skill set. You can be, it sounds like you are working and getting paid already for your language skills. And yeah, I mean,
Brilliant.
you can jump right in.
Mhm.
Emmanuel, I have visions of the archaeologist interpreter leading a very exotic life.
Yes.
So
We look forward to seeing you on all the digs in Egypt and other places, right?
I'll be in Mesoamerica. One of the things that really draws me to that region, well, I'm part Hispanic, but also the community-based type of archaeology where you hire local people from the areas, local villagers, you train them in archaeology. So you give them a skill set that they can use in the future, and you pay them for their work. And at the same time, you're educating them on their own history, which surprisingly, a lot of people that just watch TV here in the United States know more about Mayan archaeology than some of the Maya people in rural areas. So it's part of like giving to the community and to facilitate that, being able to communicate with them.
It's beautiful. There's your master's degree right there, you know. It's fabulous. What a story. We'll look for you.
Well, we're about out of time here. In fact, we're some over. So thank you everybody for being. So one last question. If people have follow-up questions, who should they contact?
You can send them through me if you like, and I'll get them to the right people. And I'll send you the, it's a Word doc with all the resources and links you can share with the students.
Wonderful, wonderful. We had a question in chat about that. So as I'll be sending that to you for sure. So thank you so much. I want to thank each and every one of you. There's people who like emailed me and said they were so sorry they missed it, but so we have a recording. And I want to thank everybody very, very much for your time and effort with us today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Heather.
so
thank
much.
you.
And thank you for recording. And if you'll send me the link of the recording, I'll make sure it gets put up to the ALC Bridge site so students can come find it again and again.
Great, thank you.